Russia just announced they've fully liberated the Luhansk People's Republic, claiming complete control over a Ukrainian region for the first time since 2014, when Crimea was claimed. But here's what's really happening behind this bold declaration. Why is it liberated, by the way? It's because obviously this is an invasion into Ukraine. So the Russian grand narrative is that this part of Ukraine doesn't belong to Ukraine because the people there are Russian speaking and they wanted to break away from Ukraine and they wanted to join Russia, so we've liberated them. The Ukrainian narrative, of course, will be, bruv, that's part of my country, you've just invaded and annexed it. Okay, fine, annex it because I can't stop you, but liberation is obviously a Russian narrative that's not facts on the ground. No, this announcement came just after Russia launched over 500 drones and missiles against Ukraine in what officials call the largest strike in 3 years. Okay, this is a big one. The timing isn't coincidental. I made a video on the strike earlier yesterday. Russia is, you see, positioning itself for upcoming negotiations with Ukraine, hoping to end this devastating war, but on Russian terms, by declaring Luhansk fully under their control, or the People's Republic, which is the southern half of Luhansk Oblast, technically. Russia is essentially saying, though, with this claim, this is ours now, before they've even sat down at the negotiating table. So they're indicating this is not a bargaining chip, this is not something that's, contested, it's mine, absolutely. It's a classic power move designed to strengthen their hand before the talks even start. Think of it like claiming victory before a game ends to make your opponent, to make actual victory more likely through psychological pressure on your opponent. It might throw them off like, whoa, has the game ended? And while he's wondering, you've made further gains. The word liberation itself tells us something about the Russian strategy. They're not just occupying territory, they're framing it as freeing people from illegitimate Ukrainian control. And like you guys hopefully know by now, I'm here to provide you with the news and analysis unbiased and without the Western spin. But that doesn't mean I'm blindly pro-China or pro-Russia or pro-Iran. I'll give you the facts, I'll give you the information, and I trust that you guys can go ahead and do some further research if needed, or if you just hear me and then you come to a conclusion, you come to your own conclusion. I'm not going to, spin it in a certain way where you are forced to come to a certain conclusion, or most likely to come to a certain conclusion, even though the facts don't point there. Now, this whole narrative by Russia, it serves multiple purposes. Number one, it justifies their actions to domestic audiences in Russia by saying, look, we're liberating, we're not conquering. Number two, it legitimizes territorial claims internationally, or tries to legitimize the claims, saying, look, this is a Russian territory, they broke away from Ukraine and they wanted to join us, now they've joined us, right? We've liberated them, we've unified them with the rest of Russia. And number three, it creates facts on the ground that become harder to reverse in any political, in any peace deal with Ukraine. If Russia's governing the region, administrating it, funding the social services and programs, taxing the people, and the people are like chilling and they're living their best life, or living a life, speaking Russian as well, mind you, then annexation becomes relatively straightforward, right? To annex, by the way, means to incorporate into the Russian state, or annex into any other country. It's not just Russia. But it becomes much easier. The whole process is much smoother because the population is basically ready to be incorporated into this new country. It's not like, for example, a sort of random country popping up in the middle of, let's say, the Middle East, where the Arabs are the natives and you bring in a new complete ethnic group with a new complete culture, and you say this land is ours, and it causes a lot of strain, and the annexation process is basically impossible because the civil disobedience, the public order problems, the strain with the natives that you're going to have is basically impossible. That's not the situation here, and that was hypothetical. Was it based on anything real? Anyway, for Russia, controlling Luhansk isn't just about the land, though the land, by the way, is very mineral rich, it has to be said. All of the southern oblasts, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, are rich in minerals compared to most of the rest of Ukraine, and that's all in Russian hands, actually. But it's not just about land, as I was saying. It's about demonstrating strength and creating irreversible gains that force Ukraine into accepting a new reality. The reality is, this is not yours anymore. The announcement signals Russia believes it holds the winning cards as the negotiations approach, assuming negotiations will take place. I can't absolutely confirm at the moment. Though Russia is coming forward and saying we're always ready for negotiations, we would like a new round of negotiations because it makes sense for the Russian Federation to want peace. It also makes more sense, actually, for Ukraine to want peace, but I'll get to later in the video why they're holding out. Hint, hint is Western interference. Now the question is, or Western support, depends how you see it. The question is, will the geostrategic facts on the ground be enough to push Ukraine into negotiations, or will they hold out so their so-called allies in Western Europe can rearm themselves, not Ukraine, rearm themselves, first time since World War II, and Ukraine continues its role as sacrificial lamb and punching bag? Because if Ukraine was unaided, they would likely make a quick peace deal because they have no other option, and the reality sets in that I have a great regional power neighbor. He can absolutely decimate me. He can reach all parts of my country with missiles and drones. Let's call it a day, guys. Let's call it a day. They would end up with a smaller country. Yes, they would end up having to give up 4 oblasts and Crimea, which they lost ages ago. Sorry, my alarm went off. So, as I was saying, by the end, if Ukraine does negotiate peace, they would end up with a smaller country, but they would end up still with the country and with peace. But with Western aid, they don't have enough to win, but they have just enough support to keep fighting and keep Russia occupied fighting them while NATO frantically rearms for a future fight. It's a sad but honest assessment to say that Western Europe has thrown Ukraine under the bus, and now that it's under the bus, the Russian bus, or more fittingly the armored treads, the tank treads of the Russian war machine, as Ukraine's now under that tank, as it grinds ever westwards, well, now that it's already down there, the Western powers basically think, well, it's already down there. Can you just disrupt the tank as much as possible? Stay down there as long as possible, disrupting the Russian bear's advance while we rearm. Like, you're already down there. You're already the sacrificial lamb. Just, be as good a tar pit, as good a mosh pit, as good a slowdown mechanism as you possibly can, please. Ukrainian lives, of course, seldom seem to matter in these calculations by so-called Western allies. For the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Mahfouz, and I'll see you on the next one.